Thank you. As for my dad, before I get started my comments, I wanted to tell you, I was thinking as I was coming up with the escort committee, I was a freshman in 2007, and we entered the freshman class with, I believe, six ladies and 5 men? Or no, that's not right. It was 4 ladies and 5 men. Well, I'm the only man standing, so I can only infer from that I was a faster runner than the other 4 who are no longer in the chamber. But my friends and colleagues, the freshmen, mean a lot to me. And Representative Avila and Representative McElrath, I know how to properly pronounce your last names. Thank you, Madam Principal Clark and Governor McCrory, Lieutenant Governor Forrest, Justices Martin, Edmonds, Newby, and Jackson, state officials, and other distinguished guests. Thank you for honoring us with your presence today. Now, Governor McCrory and Lieutenant Governor Forrest come to us today in their new capacities as the top 2 constitutional offices in North Carolina. But these 2 gentlemen have come to me many, many times before as personal friends, and I want to welcome you to the House. To the returning members of the House, welcome back. I look forward to continuing the work that we started 2 years ago. To the freshman class, 40 strong, fully 1/3 of our body, thank you for your willingness to serve. And welcome to the People's House. We are thrilled to have the experience that you all represent. Teachers, small business owners, business executives, engineers, doctors, school board members, just name a few of the skills that you have graced us with by being willing to serve. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it, and we're going to work you. Now, to the spouses of all members, I want to thank you for sharing your loved ones with the people of North Carolina, with the colleagues here, and all the other people that they will serve back in their districts. You too are public servants, and your sacrifice is to be commended, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I'm also blessed to be joined today by my greatest supporter, my chief advisor, and the love of my life, my wife Susan, along with our daughter, our son, my mama, and many other family members. Welcome. I love y'all. I'm so thankful that you're here. Two years ago, I stood before you and I accepted the highest honor of my professional and political career. I'm deeply moved and I'm doubly honored by the unanimous support given to me today. To the Minority Leader, Representative Hall, and all of the Democratic Caucus, thank you for your statesmanship. I pledge to you and all members of the Democratic Caucus that we will work together. And in times when we disagree, we will ensure civil, respectful discourse. Now, for the freshman members, particularly the members of the Democratic Caucus, I have a special message for you. I was sitting where you were just 6 years ago, a freshman member in the Minority Caucus, the so-called backbencher. And I also got the office in what's considered one of the worst in the legislative building. Sorry about that, Representative Jeter. But when I received my office assignment and my seat assignment, I have to tell you, I did utter 2 words: thank you. I tried to figure out how I could focus on legislation that I could get the support of the leadership. And I worked within the political realities of the time. And 4 years later, I was blessed to be elected Speaker. Now, I tell you this not to brag. I tell you this to demonstrate that you have tremendous potential and that you will have many opportunities to do great things. And you have my personal commitment to work with you on legislation consistent with our policy direction, because I owe it to you. I owe it to you because it was help from the Democratic majority members like Representative Wilkins and Representative Lucas, the true gentleman of the chamber, and former Representative Greer Martin that helped me have an impact early in my tenure. And I could go on with another long list. I see even Representative Lukey back there in a finance committee and a number of other people who treated me with respect, and we owe it to you to do the same. Now, their approaches may vary. Our views are driven, and they're driven by differing ideologies. I firmly believe that we all have a common goal. We all want to improve North Carolina and make our great state even greater. In fact, I think we all want to make North Carolina the greatest state in the Union. Over the past 2 years, we have made significant progress, but there is much more to do. We've made hard choices in the face of economic uncertainty, and we've governed responsibly, despite heated rhetoric and political battles. And I have to say that the doomsday predictions of those who opposed our decisions truly have not come to pass. North Carolina is doing just fine. In fact, there are clear indications that the state's economy is beginning to move in the right direction. Yet we have a lot more work to do. So how do we make North Carolina truly the greatest state? I think we'll do it by continuing to implement policies that position us to deliver the best possible service to our constituents in a professional, business-like manner. You know, the best-run businesses have the best products, the best services, the best paid employees, and the best employee morale. And while the democratic processes of the General Assembly are not a business, it's messy, it's noisy, and a lot of times inefficient, there is the business of government, and there is substantial room for improvement in North Carolina. And we simply must commit to advancing an agenda that will transform our business, our state, with the goal of being the very best at everything we do. We must be willing to make tough decisions, and we have to implement forward-thinking policies that result in better education outcomes, better health care outcomes, improve public safety, reduce tax burdens, and responsible, I call it right-sized regulations. We must continue our work on sound fiscal management by passing responsible budgets that force us to live within our means and that minimize the tax burdens on citizens and businesses. We must fully exploit North Carolina's position as the home to the best workforce in the nation. North Carolina workers are experienced, they're diverse, and they're dedicated. They're our greatest asset, and their success will secure our future prosperity. We must protect our workers and their right to work, and we must send the very clear message to businesses already in North Carolina and those considering expanding here that North Carolina will continue to be the least unionized state in the United States. We also have to place a priority on securing our leadership position in higher education, and we must step up our efforts to improve traditional K-12 education. Education accounts for over 60% of our state budget, or just almost 60%, and therefore it deserves the lion's share of our time and our best efforts. North Carolina's higher education system is truly a national standard. Our community colleges and universities are second to none, and they produce some of the brightest minds in the nation. But we cannot rest on our laurels. Our community college and university systems must preserve their leadership position in the nation, and in fact, we need to put more distance between North Carolina and the rest of the pack. That's very important, but to me, this is one of the most important things. Many of you know this is my last term. This is my last time to be elected Speaker. There's a legacy we all have an opportunity to leave behind, and that is meaningful change in K-12 education. And we're going to do that. We have to redouble our focus on traditional K-12 public education. The problems with our K-12 system didn't begin a year or so ago. The problems have existed for decades, and the state and federal government have made it even more difficult for education professionals to pursue their passion. Have you ever seen a teacher or principal that just wasn't thrilled about trying to teach a kid? That's all they want to do. What we must do is open our minds and our eyes and our ears, and we've got to reach out to hardworking teachers and principals and superintendents and implement policies based on their experience in the classrooms, practical experience, the enormous training that they have. We can and we must give teachers and principals more flexibility to run their schools and their classrooms as they see fit. We must continue a tradition started in 2011, incidentally, to give local school districts budgeting certainty by passing our budget before we expect them to pass their budget, which depends on us. We must encourage cost-efficient innovation in our schools by focusing on new technologies such as digital learning. And we must reward school systems for becoming more efficient, allowing them to keep the money that they save and reinvest it into areas that they believe will improve education outcomes. About a month ago, I had a discussion with the superintendent, one of our largest school systems in the state. And he said that he and many of his colleagues were considering applying for a charter school within their public school system. And when I asked him why he would do that, he said that he thought that that added flexibility would provide more opportunities for them to innovate and do some good things for those traditional K-12 kids. And I asked him, rather than simply giving you one or two schools in your district that you could have that flexibility, why don't we work on what we have to do to give every school in your district that flexibility? You know, thousands of children are receiving educations that do not live up to our high standards. Not a single parent in this room can look at the education outcomes today for every child in the state and say that it truly lives up to the standards that we know we're capable of achieving. So what we have to do is get rid of the list of regulations, controls, and other impediments that just get in the way of teaching. They get away from teaching, they get away from the student. And we must find meaningful ways to deregulate K-12 public schools to put the power back into the schools and back into the classroom. Now, we will continue to advocate for charter schools and parental involvement in where their children go to school. But I firmly believe North Carolina can build on many promising efforts already underway in traditional public schools. There are many success stories that have received national and international attention, and I've visited many of these schools to see it firsthand. Exciting projects like Mission Possible in Guilford County, Project Lift in Mecklenburg County, which is just beginning, Connect down in Onslow County, and Digital Conversion down in the Mooresville Graded School District. They're examples of great ideas born out of innovation and hard work of our education professionals on the ground. We must encourage and reward innovative ideas like these, but we also have to make sure that every single student in this state is blessed with the opportunity and the future that comes by having that access to those types of programs. And we can do it. By the way, I have to tell you that there's something else I'm very proud of, and you wouldn't know, and I hope that you will go out into these school systems and see it for yourself. Understand that we have 3 or 4 superintendents in our schools that have been at least runner-ups for National Superintendent of the Year. We have one who was National Superintendent just a couple of years ago. And we have one in Mark Edwards, Dr. Mark Edwards, who this week was announced as one of 4 finalists for National Superintendent of the Year. We need to celebrate those successes. Now, to lay the groundwork for long-term success in education and all other areas of government, the importance of responsible and reliable budgeting cannot be overstated. Over the last 2 years, we passed the state budget well before counties and schools were required to finalize their budgets, which provided certainty to local governments, to school systems that have not seen that in years. It may sound like a minor point, but it is not if you have ever been in a position where you had to make hard set decisions on a budget and you didn't really know if the money was going to be there to support your assumptions. We were confronted with multi-billion-dollar structural deficit, yet we passed a budget in record time. We managed to live within our means, and we lived up to our promise to cut taxes. Some $1.5 billion taxes that returned to the private sector last year, this year, and as long as I'm here, every year hereafter. By confronting the fiscal challenges, we now face a more stable foundation, and the challenges of this year's budget pale in comparison to the budget that the House took on. We gave the Senate the light load, Lieutenant Governor. But we must continue to find ways to increase the efficiency and reduce the cost of government. We must eliminate waste and protect against abuses of the system. We must fight efforts to raise taxes, and in fact, we must find ways to lower taxes. Most importantly, we must pass budgets that put the interest of taxpayers ahead of the interest of those who want to expand the scope and the cost of government. We must also make progress on major issues that have been ignored for far too long. North Carolina's tax system is outdated, and it's built on an economy that existed decades ago. The high level of taxes and the complexity of our taxation system weaken North Carolina's competitive advantage. We must implement common sense reforms that are fair, that are responsible, that provide relief to North Carolina citizens and businesses, and that stimulate our economy rather than hamper its expansion. We must proceed pragmatically, though, and we must be sensitive to the implications of broad-based tax reform. But reform we must. And considering both simple and complex approaches, from streamlining tax returns to restructuring the tax code, all options need to be on the table. And like so many others that we have tackled so far, I know we can tackle this task because I believe in you and your ability to lead and do it, every single one of you, and we've got to get it done. Now, we also must continue to build on progress we made during the last 2 years on regulatory reform. I personally believe that it is truly the key to our competitive position for job creation and economic development. Some regulations are necessary, but many are burdensome and represent nothing more than bureaucratic red tape. We must eliminate unnecessary regulations that stifle growth and job creation. Right-sized regulations have another great effect. The fewer regulations, the fewer regulators. Through these efforts, I sincerely believe we'll make North Carolina an advocate and not an adversary to small business owners, job creators, and individual citizens. Over the next 2 years, this House will face many difficult choices, and some of which we don't even have a clue where they're going to come from. That's just how it works. In this chamber, though, no matter what the weight, the importance, or partisan flavor, we will remain civil and courteous while we maintain an efficient and effective pace of government. As the Speaker, I will work hard to ensure that the North Carolina House of Representatives is the House of Reason, that is rational and respectable. All stakeholders will have a seat at the table. All voices will be heard, and we know that because we heard them all last year. And all 120 of us will confront issues, great and small, over the next biennium, and I'm confident that we will work and make great strides towards transforming North Carolina from the great state that it is today to the greatest state in this blessed union. Again, I want to thank you all today, family members. I want to thank you in particular for your support in the past and all the support that your loved ones will need in the future, to the governor and the lieutenant governor and all of our distinguished guests. I want to thank you for the high order members of leading this august body. It's truly amazing. God bless you, And God bless the great state of North Carolina.